be sure to introduce yourself.
Okay.
And
Is there anybody home that I don't know?
I don't know. Leanne, I don't know if you know her. I okay, now they can see her. Okay, we're recording.
All right. Hi, everybody. Thank you for being here today on this really rainy, hard to get here day. So my name is Sharon Myers, and I'm a nurse, and I also have my master's in counseling and psychology, and I have a special interest in how people make behavior change and motivation and taking care of ourselves and all that sort of stuff. But the reason that I'm giving this talk today is because of Dodie. She she brought me this great book called Self-Compassion by Kristen Neff, the wonderful book. So if any of you guys want to take a look at it after the lecture, it's really good. So we're going to talk about self-compassion. It's a big, broad topic. Once I kind of started diving into it, I realized it probably could be 2 or 3 lectures. So today we're just doing a little bit just to start toward it.
Right in the house.
Okay, so before we talk about self-compassion, I thought we'd spend a little bit of time talking about what is not self-compassion and kind of what's a lot of what is in our head all the time that we don't even realize. So take a moment and just think about currently when you have a difficulty or you've made a mistake, how do you react to that? You know, internally and externally, but a lot of it's internal. So what types of things do you typically judge and criticize yourself for? For example, your appearance. You know, if you're trying to lose weight and then you get on the scale and you haven't lost weight, do you immediately start with this whole critical thing in your head? Mistakes you make in relationships. Parenting is a huge one. So just be aware and just take a moment as I'm going through these things to think about your own life and think about how you talk to yourself and some of the things that are in your life that are triggering for you to start being kind of self-critical. What tone or type of language do you use when you're talking to yourself? You know, I just went on this little vacation with my college roommates, and one of them that I was really close to in college is also a nurse. And she's recently started taking care of her 95-year-old mother part of the time. And she's realized that she has even though her mother's was a great mother, she did have this critical kind of tone. And my roommate Judy has all of a sudden realized she's just had like a light bulb went off that tone is in her head all the time. When she makes a mistake, it's kind of, oh, Judy, why did you do that? You know, that she realizes it's in her head. And I remember even back in college, my friend Judy, when she would mess up something, she would say out loud, oh, Judy, why did you do that? You know, so we do carry these things, you know, in our heads from our childhood. So just be aware of how you're talking to yourself and what the tone is. Is it a kind and understanding tone, or is it more critical? How does that make you feel inside when you talk to yourself that way? What are the consequences of being so hard on yourself? Does it make you more motivated? Does it make you more discouraged or anxious? I know for myself, that makes me more discouraged and anxious, especially the anxious part. And does it cause you to cut yourself off from others when things go wrong? Because we think when we've made a mistake or something's gone wrong, that we're the only ones that did such a horrible thing. And so then we don't want to be around other people. We just want to be with ourselves and ruminate on it. And we think we're a bad person. So we're going to kind of talk about all these things. So what's our common go-to when we make a mistake? Many times it's criticism. I can't do it. I'm not worthy. I must be perfect and I'm not perfect. I'm not good enough.
I'll go with worms.
What? Yeah, right. I think I'll go eat worms. Yeah.
Guess I'll eat some worms.
So this is just this is another, I talk about this a lot, but this is these reels in our head are just a habit reel. We've just been doing it for, 69 years. So what is the goal of self-criticism? We think, if we punish ourselves, with these words that we'll stop doing the behavior or that everything will be okay. We think, whipping ourselves in our head will cause us to improve, maybe help us avoid making the same mistake again. We also, avoid being self-compassionate to ourselves because there's something about that that feels a little bit lazy. Maybe it really won't accomplish anything and we don't deserve that kind of thing. So anyway, how's all this working for you? The punishment, the forcing ourselves to improve, being critical. Self-criticism, they've studied it. It makes you feel like you're being yelled at. And we all know how we feel when we're being yelled at. And when we self-criticize ourselves, the driving force then that gets underneath that criticism is fear. So then we have this low level and sometimes a high level, but just this low level of fear and anxiety. When we yell at ourselves and say mean things to ourselves, our amygdala, I've talked about that before, that's that little area of the brain that identifies danger. It wakes up, it gets fired, it starts firing, fear, fear, danger, danger, and it sends out the fight or flight response. And so we immediately have more stress hormones circulating in our body. What happens when we have stress hormones? When you get under stress, they've done studies on this, you can't think straight, you can't do math, you can't get your sentences out correctly. So that is not the state to be in when you've made a mistake and you're trying to learn from it and move on and have a happy life. It's not helpful. It's not helpful. And that amygdala is just firing. So it's hard to learn new things when we are under stress. It makes us feel insecure and jittery, and it's harder to think clearly. So what is self-compassion? Finally, we got through all that criticism stuff. So self-compassion is the practice of, this is by Kristen Neff, she's done the most research in this area and has written, I think, 3 different books. It's the practice of being kind to the self with a positive and healthy attitude, which enables the individual to deal effectively with the setbacks that are inherent to our human existence. It's just going to happen every day. That's life, Self-compassion is simply the process of turning compassion inward toward ourselves. How about that? Wouldn't that be wonderful to do that all the time? To take care of ourselves? We're kind and understanding rather than harshly self-critical when we fail, make mistakes, or feel inadequate. We give ourselves support. That's the key with self-compassion, is allowing ourselves to get support and encouragement rather than being cold, judgmental when challenges and difficulties arise in our lives. What a wonderful, wonderful way to kind of go through our lives, to be able to give that to ourselves. And it's just a habit. We can start doing it. And they've done studies, self-compassion taps into your desire to be healthy and happy. Because you care about and accept yourself, you'll be more likely to do what you need to do to learn and grow. And sometimes we think that self-compassion is kind of a dysfunctional way to be, but it's really, self-compassion is the way that we heal, the way that we move forward, the way that we grow. We're going to talk more about this next part, but it involves self-compassion. The first step in self-compassion is being present with what's going on, with our own pain. What are we feeling? Lots of times things happen and it's just there and we don't even realize that we're feeling pain. And the reason it's helpful to feel the pain is because then we can connect with others who also have felt this pain before and realize that we're not alone. The Buddha refers to the motivational quality of self-compassion as the right effort or natural desire to heal suffering. So self-compassion gets a bum rap. When we think of the word self, we think of selfishness, right? And we think of me-oriented self, self-centered. Kind of feels kind of bad when we say that. And when we think of the word compassion, we think of kind of a weak, passive state, ignoring our mistakes or letting them slide. But that's not true. Self involves actually joining with others. In self-compassion, we think of ourselves in relation to others. We're not just sitting, when we're doing self-compassion, we're not just sitting ruminating over the reason that we're so bad and we're horrible and we don't deserve to, like, leave our house. That's self. But when we're in self-compassion, we're joining with others. The Latin word for compassion is compassio, which means to suffer together. Not placing, and when we do this, we're not placing ourselves above others or more deserving. We're joined with them. We're interconnected in a way that's equal to others in our humanity, our frailties, and our follies. So it's not like when we look on Instagram or Facebook and we see that somebody, who's 60 looks like they're 30 and they're going to all these parties and we're feeling, that. No, it's an equalness that we're all in this together. We all have follies. We've all had frailties. It's our humanity joining together. And compassion, I already talked, the Latin word for compassion is compassio, which means we suffer together. It recognizes that mistakes are inherent to our human nature, not a sign of personal inadequacy. Self-compassion helps us be more mindful of our mistakes. It helps us to not over-identify with our mistakes and become our mistakes. And it helps us not to avoid our mistakes. So it's really not the weakness, the passivity, and ignoring our mistakes. So there are three main pillars of self-compassion. The three main pillars are mindfulness, self-kindness, and connectedness. So the first part of it is mindfulness, accurately being able to be aware and perceive your thoughts, feelings, and experiencing them without over-identifying with them. And I'll talk more about what that means. So mindfulness just means you're aware of your thoughts and you're acknowledging them, that they're there. You see them, you feel them, you have an awareness about them. And just doing that is a little bit relaxing, because if we're having these thoughts that we're a bad person, we've done a bad thing, and we're trying to push that away, we're in battle. We're just in battle, and that triggers the amygdala even more. So just perceiving and acknowledging our thoughts and our feelings can be a little bit relaxing. The second part is asking yourself, once you've acknowledged and know that you're having these feelings, the second part is asking yourself what you need. What do I need now that I know that I'm feeling anxious or bad about this situation? Taking care of yourself with care and understanding. I know I made this mistake. What do I need now? What is the best thing now for me? And then the third part is having connectedness with common humanity. So not being alone and sitting alone with your thoughts, recognizing that challenges are part of the human experience, and we all experience the things that you're experiencing. So I just wanted to spend a little bit of time talking about mindfulness versus what we call over-identification. So, when we're sitting there ruminating about the mistake that we made and that we're a bad person about it, it just goes on and on and on. And before you know it, we think we are our mistake. We think we are, it gets so big and it takes over us. We think that is us. We are that bad mistake. We're that bad person. Instead of, it's this little piece over here that's floating through our lives right now, and it's not us. It's just this little piece that we're thinking about. So mindfulness helps us acknowledging we are in pain. We can't show ourselves compassion if we don't acknowledge that we're in pain. So that's the first step. With mindfulness, we recognize that our negative thoughts and feelings are just that, thoughts and feelings, and that they pass. We are not our thoughts and feelings. We're not those thoughts and feelings. We can't believe everything you think. So when we're in kind of an over-identification state, when we're ruminating and it's getting bigger and bigger, we identify oneself to excessive degree with someone or something. So that becomes all of who we are. It becomes very excessive. We get caught in this rumination cycle. We become our mistakes. Not only did I make a mistake, I am a mistake. Not only did something horrible happen, my life is horrific. See how big it gets? So doing the mindfulness part can really help us let go of that over-identification and see that those are just thoughts and feelings that are passing through. So some studies, there's probably 4,000 studies now on self-compassion. but they show positive outcomes. People who have self-compassion, on a self-compassion rating scale, are more emotionally resilient. So they're better able to handle the difficulties of life. They have higher motivation to achieve goals, better relationships with others because they're less isolated, and are associated with more positive psychological states. They'll have less anxiety, less depression. So we need to restructure our ideas about self-compassion. Chris and Neff studied how compassionate we currently are. 68% of us have more compassion for others than for ourselves. That's not surprising, is it? We know how to be compassionate with others, don't we? Only 6% of us have more compassion for ourselves than others, which kind of makes sense because I think you'd want it to be equal compassion for ourselves and others. But only 16% have equal compassion for ourselves and others. Only 16%. Something to work on. The golden rule says, do unto others as you would have others do unto you. An addendum should be, do not do unto others as you do unto yourself, or you'll have no friends. So, right. If we treated ourselves the way that if we treated others the way we treat ourselves, we wouldn't have any friends, right? Yeah. So, gosh, treat ourselves as our friend. So self-compassion versus self-criticism. So these are just some, if you look at the issues on the left, these are some things that might be triggering for us to either be self-critical or to use some self-compassion. One of them is compassion fatigue. It's a very common situation where a lot of feelings will come up and a lot of overwhelmed feelings and anger and fatigue and anxiety. So taking care of a sick relative. And you're getting overwhelmed by it and you're getting tired and you're starting to get angry at the person. And so a self-compassionate response to that would be, this is hard. And it's normal to be tired and overwhelmed. So just acknowledging that. And then then what do I need? I will talk with a friend to brainstorm ways to get some help for myself. That's a compassionate response to that. Whereas what do we usually do? A self-critical response, which ends up being critical, indulgent, pity, shame, irresponsibility. I deserve to be unhappy because I should be better able to handle this and do a better job. Beating yourself up over that. Mistakes. Has anybody made a mistake recently? Look, I love that everybody's laughing though, because it just goes to show you that, it's how many do we make a day, honestly? And can anybody think of a mistake that you've made recently that we could stick into this little chart? See, we make mistakes and then we beat ourselves up and it's still there roaming around, but we don't even know because we haven't brought it to the forefront, right? Well, think about it a little bit. I'll give you an example. From a few years ago, I borrowed a car from a friend and I was in San Francisco and I went to this beach area by Baker Beach and there was no place to park in the parking lot. And so I thought, well, I'll just park on the side street here. And it was a big car, which I wasn't used to. And I went off and I didn't realize it, but I was in sand in this big car. And so when I went to leave, the tires just spun in the sand. And then I didn't realize it, but one of the tires was spinning and it was spinning with sand and there was a concrete block where the sand ended. So it was kind of hitting the concrete block. So anyway, I couldn't get it out. And then I went into this whole immediately the self-critical thing. I felt like I couldn't call my friend and tell him because, I was really stupid. And not only was I stupid to park in the sand, but now I destroyed the tire. So, it just was going on and on and on. So I did call AAA and the one guy comes out and he just looks at it and he just, did the self-critical thing in his head. And he said, ma'am, I can't get you out of there. I thought, oh my gosh, it just could, I felt so bad. And I said, really? I said, well, what am I going to do? And he goes, well, I do have this one friend. He's got a different kind of tow truck. I call him and see if he's around. So anyway, long story short, this guy came and he was the nicest guy. He drove up and you could see, saw my car and you could see that he was excited. He stood up straighter and he literally didn't even stop the tow truck all the way before he had his door open and he was jumping out and he looked like a mouse. He pounced and he's looking at the car and he goes, yeah, we can get this out. And I mean, no criticism. He was excited about the whole thing. He was making jokes. I felt pretty good by the time, and they changed my tire. So anyway, but you know, the bottom line is it, and then by the time I got back to my friend's house, I still was feeling, you know, pretty bad. But I did have some positive voices going in my head. You know, I made a mistake. But I don't know about parking in sand. I didn't know the sand was there. Next time I'll know, I'll learn from this. I was able to work through and get the problem resolved. So, you know, a lot of self-compassion in there too. So just an example. And then I'll just talk about this one, hurtful relationship patterns. Say that you were critical of your daughter because she done something wrong. And so the self-compassionate response would be, I was critical of my daughter, but I apologize. And I have a mantra for how I will talk to her in the future. And we have become closer from talking about it. So, and then on the other hand, the self-criticism response, I was critical of my daughter. I made her cry. I'm a lousy parent. I just can't ever get it right. Someone else would be a better parent for her. Not uncommon to be thinking things like that, but is it helpful? No, well, there's no moving forward with that. You're just stuck there. And then it's not helpful for the other person either. But when you give yourself some self-compassion, it lifts you up and you're even better able to apologize for your mistakes because you're not feeling like you're a bad person. You're feeling like, you know, I'm strong. I have things to give. I'm strong enough to apologize. It's a different feeling that you come into a situation with. So what are some strategies for improving self-compassion? We talked about mindfulness awareness, and we're going to do a little mindfulness activity in a little bit. So that's the first step. Permission to feel how you feel, saying to yourself how you feel, acknowledging it, bringing it to the forefront. And then I've talked about this, changing your story, changing our critical thoughts to what is true and helpful. So when I was in that situation with the car being stuck, yes, I made a mistake and I got stuck there. But what was true and helpful is that I didn't know. Next time I'll know that huge learning thing about not parking in sand, and when you're close to a beach, when you're parking, that there's probably going to be sand around, and you know, getting the right person to help you is important. So rather than, that is part of the story, that is true and helpful, that it was part of the story, along with the part where I was stupid and an idiot and should blah 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 blah. You know, there's that whole story, but there's a whole other story. There always is a whole other story there, and that the other story is self-compassionate story. So replacing the can'ts with the cans. So even though you've done something wrong, it's never too late to do the right thing. So maybe, you know, you didn't do the right thing 10 years ago when you know, said something to a friend and you lost your friendship because of it. But maybe you can't get that friendship back, but you can use that information to change the way that you talk and have friendships with people now. You can start today to do things differently. So I can't do that, but I can do this because I've learned, and this is what I do now. Embracing the ands. So yes, I got stuck in the sand, and at the same time, I was able to work through a solution. So there's always an and there too. We're going to talk about this 3-step plan called NEW. We'll get to that. And I'll show a little slide on writing a compassionate letter. We'll do a little compassionate imagery, loving kindness meditation, and compassion promoting triggers. So if you're trying to integrate some self-compassion into your life, it's not just going to happen magically. It's not a habit that you're currently doing. So you have to have some triggers around that remind you to talk self-compassionately to yourself. So it might be that you have a little Post-it note that you put on your refrigerator or on the dashboard of your car, or you wear a little bracelet or a rubber band around your hand. That's a reminder to talk self-compassionately to yourself. Because you're going to have things happen all day that are going to cause you to speak critically of yourself. So it's good to have something right on you or around you that can be a reminder, oh, this is an opportunity to practice my self-compassion. Because what happens if we practice it more than once? So we start to get that neural pathway in our brain. And then if we do it 3 times and 4 times, and we probably have an opportunity to do it 5 or 10 times a day, right? Little things, it can be a little thing that we do. Okay, we talked about the ands. I kind of already did this. See if you can allow gentle acceptance to coexist with the active drive for improvement. For example, I made the mistake of being critical of my child, and I have a mantra and a plan for what I will do differently when the situation arises again. So you both acknowledged, you're not saying, oh, this didn't happen. You're not saying, oh, this was nothing. You're not discounting it. You're acknowledging what you did. You're acknowledging how you feel. And how can I take care of myself? What's the next step? So, we're gonna do if you'd like to join in, a loving kindness meditation that's specifically about self-compassion. But before we do that, so far, has anything kind of touched you in some way where you think, oh yeah, that makes sense, or I've done that, or this would be helpful? Anything that's kind of ringing true for you, or light bulbs going off in any way?
Yeah, I was thinking when you gave the traffic thing, the one thing, and this was multifaceted, I went through, but I was turning right on Howe Avenue, out of the Fantastic,
Yeah,
going to, and there was a truck in front of me. And you look left and you turn right because you can.
yeah,
So I looked left, and the person in front of me saw a U-turn person coming around there and had to stop for that person. And I didn't realize that, and I ran right into the back of that person because I looked this way and went that way.
right.
So the first thing I did, I felt bad. I made a mistake. But it's interesting. The lady got out and I got out, and I thought try to rationalize and try to think, is it somebody else's fault?
Right.
And I thought I smelled alcohol, and I said, "Have you been drinking?" Which was, totally out of,
Totally, yeah.
yeah. So, that
Yeah,
but I learned from that, and I always now I look and I look before I turn. So
right,
I learned.
right, yeah. And so how did you kind of beat yourself up about that once you?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
For a while I did. And
Yeah.
then I thought, look, now I'm going to really be cognizant of where I am and what I'm doing, especially in a situation like that, but
Yeah.
driving generally, more cautious
Yeah,
about
right.
when I change lanes or whenever I do anything. So
Yeah, I did this, and at the same, this is my plan for the future with that, right? So it allows you to move on. Yeah, good. All right.
And, as you've been talking, I'm thinking of things. I tend to get anxious and feel like I make mistakes. I get nervous when it's financial.
Uh-huh,
Because that's a hard one.
uh-huh.
And I did make a mistake. I was on, and I don't do it anymore. I was on the internet and I bought something. And before I knew it, it took the money, and I put my card in.
Yeah,
But I thought there'd be a review or
Right.
something, and there was, it's gone, and it's not something, and I found out it was not, it just wasn't something I wanted. It was
Yeah.
It was, they sent a combo kind of thing. It's not, I only wanted more. So then I was all upset.
Yeah,
Why
mhm.
don't you do this? All of that. So
Yeah.
it involves money. Get really.
Yeah, yeah. So it'd be good for you. I'm going to talk a little bit about creating mantras. It would be good for you to have, and all of us, to have a little mantra, especially if there's something that you know is triggering for you, like if it's always money that triggers you, or if it's always your interactions with your child that triggers you, be aware of that, and then have a mantra, just, which is just a sentence that you can use to stop that self-flagellation and critical voice in your head, and something that's helpful for you. There's no point in doing the critical thing because that's not helpful. So what would be helpful for you? So I don't know, what would be helpful for you when you make a financial mistake? What would help you, move forward, um, learn from it, have a happy life? Yeah, what would that be? What would that mantra be that would help you in that situation?
Like, "No, it's okay. You could do that."
You did this?
Luckily, you know, and be much more careful
Yeah,
in the future, which I have, because that's sometimes you're even on the phone.
yes.
Now I don't do any of my,
Uh-huh,
so the web, I might find something on the phone and then go to my laptop
Yeah,
and find the actual
right.
site, because I can understand it more,
yes,
and I can take time.
right.
I need the time.
So, yeah, so I know I made this mistake with the financial stuff, and I know that I do better if I don't ever buy anything on the phone,
Right.
and I'm not going to do that anymore. And that's a little comforting, isn't it, to think that? I mean, just saying it myself, it feels a little comforting.
Mhm.
So yeah, find something that's comforting to you. And that's true and helpful and comforting. Okay. All right. So if you would like to join in with this, we're going to just do a quick little self-compassion meta meditation. So get in a comfortable position, whatever's comfortable for you. And just be aware that you're here in the room, in your chair. Go ahead and close your eyes. Take in a deep breath in through your nose, deep into your stomach, and then slowly let it out. Think of a situation in your life that is difficult, or something that happened in the past that was difficult, that is currently causing you stress, or in the past caused you stress. Call the situation to mind and see if you can actually feel the stress and the emotional discomfort in your body. And just let yourself feel it and acknowledge it. Now say to yourself, this is a moment of suffering. I am able to notice my feelings. This hurts me and feels painful. And now say to yourself, suffering is a part of life. That's common humanity. Other people feel this way. I am not alone. We all struggle in our lives. Now put your hand over your heart and feel the warmth of your hand and gentle touch. And now say to yourself, may I be well, may I be happy. May I give myself the space and time to feel my difficult emotions when I believe I have not measured up. May I be gentle with myself and recognize that all humans are imperfect, including me. May I remember that I am not alone. I am part of humanity. May I speak to myself with kindness as I would to others. May I begin to forgive myself for my actions or inaction. And may I reach out to others for understanding and love when weighed down by shame. And now just take a moment to come back into the room and open your eyes when you're ready. How did that feel? Good. Yeah. It's nice to just take a moment throughout the day just to do that for ourselves. Or, just even find something, in this that's just one sentence that you might put on a little Post-it note or put someplace where you'll see. Another thing that you can do is called compassion, having a compassionate image. And so sometimes if we have that critical voice in our head and it's a habit, it's helpful to have another image that we can imagine that is a wise, compassionate being. It could be somebody that we've known in the past, or it could be somebody that we're just have an awareness about, a wise being that we could see and want in our life. So it could be somebody that a really good friend who's never been judgmental, whatever works for you. So once again, we're going to close our eyes, sit in a comfortable position. Taking a deep breath, feeling it all the way down into our abdomen, and then slowly letting the air out. Now create in your mind the image of a caring, compassionate person, either alive or dead. Some people like to choose a religious figure or a Buddha. Others may choose someone they've known who is very compassionate, a favorite aunt or a teacher. Try to visualize this person the best you can, using all of your senses if possible. Notice their expressions, the warmth they give out, the wisdom that they have. If you are suffering through something that is hard right now, think about the type of caring, wise, and loving things this person would say to you if they were there with you, and allow them to say those things to you and give those things to you. What would they say? Allow yourself to just bask in the warmth of the compassion you feel from this person. And now just release the imagery of this compassionate person and know that you can always come back to this compassionate person whenever you need to. Sit quietly and enjoy the comfort you are feeling. And now just slowly come back into the room, open your eyes when you're ready. Were you all able to conjure a wise, compassionate person? So we have that. If you're able to do it, then that means you have it inside you. You already have it. It's just bringing it out in front of you. It's already there. It's just having it closer to you and the step of finger being able to bring it up. So also I've been talking a lot about having a compassionate mantra. A mantra is a statement or slogan repeated frequently. It's something that can be used to help you stay focused and settle your brain down when it gets a little overactive or when it starts ruminating. examples of mantras to try. This is hard, but it's only temporary. So these are short little things. And once again, I encourage you to put them somewhere that will trigger you to say it over and over again. May I be kind to myself in this moment. I'm here for you. What do you need right now? That one really works for me because it takes me out of the, you're bad. This was bad, blah, 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 blah. It's like, what do you need? It moves you forward. I'm not alone. Other people feel this way too. Create your own version and recite it as often as you can, or put it somewhere where you see it as often as you can. Memorize it so you can give yourself the gift of compassion anywhere, anytime. And this we're not going to do, but I put it on here so that you can, go to YouTube and look this up if you want. But some people like to write. And so this is writing a compassionate letter. So this just gives you instructions on how to do that. Think of something that you feel. It's especially good to do this if you're in the midst of something that's you're really beating yourself up about and you're having a hard time. You think about what you're feeling ashamed about or insecure about, and then this kind of walks you through it. So this is a nice thing to just kind of keep in your toolbox. Using self-compassion strategies, a 3-step plan, it's called NEW. So, and we've talked about all this, but this is just a way of organizing it. So the first step when you're feeling critical and having those critical voices is to notice that you're being critical of yourself. And acknowledging that's a critical thought, acknowledging how you're feeling from the thought. Are you then emotionally labeling it? That's the E part. Are you angry, sad, anxious? So just allowing yourself not to push those things away, just seeing them, acknowledging how you're feeling. And then the next step is what to do. Request compassion for yourself. What would a good friend say to you at this point? What would your compassionate, wise person say to you? What is true and helpful in this situation? That's another one that I use a lot. What's true and helpful? So, create your mantra and then notice what happened, acknowledge what happened, label your feelings so that you allow your feelings to be there, and then request compassion for yourself. If your compassion does not include yourself, it is incomplete. It's way incomplete. Because once again, you can't be compassionate for other people if you're not compassionate for yourself. And then I just have some references here, and I wanted to, some of them are sites where you can go. They have compassion exercises. Some of them are studies, but the one I put in red here is Linda Larson, who's our mindfulness therapist here. She comes once a month. If you go to our website, then, and this tells you how to get there, you just click on that. It's a link. Then you can go to she's got a whole bunch of mindfulness activities. She's got stuff on self-compassion. She's got a lot of information on this subject. So we have a resource right here. All right. Any questions, concerns, compassionate thoughts for yourself?
Representative capacity.
Well, that's good.
I was all of the things mantras was what yes, that person, what would they say? I don't know.
One of them, what would your wise, compassionate person say? And one of them was, what would a good friend say?
Well, not trying to get any prizes or anything, but I bring it. You guys do that way.
Oh,
Very cool.
it's good to surround yourself with people that are changing that tape in your head. Because, like I said, you can change that. So it makes a difference who you're around and what they're saying to you. So,
Well, we could have it sometime come back and repeat every once in a while. It's a good reminder. If you get away from
yes,
Mm.
yes.
it's good to repeat it every once in a while so that we
Yeah.
keep ourselves on course.
Yeah. Yes, we all need that.
Mhm.
Different set of people as well.
Say more about that.
Well, maybe you get better, you know.
It affects all people in life.
That's right.
It passes on.
Right. When you're self-compassionate and you're in that space like a wise, compassionate person, you're that person for the next person. And it just goes on and on. It ripples out. Yeah. And the same with self-criticism, right? That
Yeah.
ripples out too, doesn't it?
Seems to be an easy one to grab.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
yeah. It's an old pattern, but we can create new patterns, like just how you're feeling right now. You're creating pathways in your brain for that. All right, thank you. I appreciate all of you being here today on this rainy, cold day.